Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to truly understanding the unexpected. Today we're plunging into the fascinating story of a watch that, well, completely defied expectations for many. The Rolex Daytona, famously dubbed the Alcaraz. Our mission here is to go beyond those really strong first impressions and dig into what happened when an expert revisited this timepiece and discovered something genuinely surprising about perception itself.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it, how certain design choices, especially the bolder ones, can instantly polarize opinion. And often what we initially dismiss, maybe when we just see it online, can lead to a completely unexpected journey. You end up appreciating it in real life. This particular watch, the Alcaraz Daytona, it really embodies that journey.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We're talking about the Rolex Daytona, specifically reference 1265180N. That's the yellow gold model with its incredibly striking turquoise lacquer dial.
That's the one.
It earned its unofficial Alcaraz nickname, of course, because tennis sensation Carlos Alcaraz famously wore it during the Roland Garros 2025 prize ceremony, made it instantly recognizable.
Oh yeah, that moment definitely put it on the map. And historically, the Daytona has been, well, Rolex's hottest watch, maybe. Particularly since the steel ceramic bezel, the on 16500 LN.
Right.
And for quite a while, its color palette had become fairly conservative, which kind of stood in stark contrast to Rolex's recent, really innovative focus on dial making across its other collections.
Yeah, we've seen bright colors everywhere else, stone dials, even those jigsaw ones.
Exactly. So seeing such vibrant dial making finally arrive in the Daytona line was, well, it was a pretty significant shift.
And when it first officially dropped, the reaction was immediate and, let's just say, visceral.
Yeah.
I mean, our sources reveal that there were unpublishable words echoing among the expert team.
Apparently so. There was genuine bewilderment, like, why turquoise on yellow gold?
The analogies that came up were pretty vivid, too, like imagining a yellow suit over a turquoise shirt.
Yeah, or that turquoise 911 with a yellow leather interior. It just seemed like a real clash visually at first glance.
A real head-scratcher initially.
And it's worth highlighting, too, that this specific Alcaraz edition was the only one openly advertised among the 8 new Daytona references that year.
Oh, really? Just that one?
Yeah, the others, meteorite dials, a new white gold with a blue dial, some chocolate brown ones, even a John Mayer MKII with a two-tone green dial. So this turquoise one, it was clearly designed to grab attention.
Makes sense.
But what's also quite interesting, thinking about this boldness, is that it isn't actually the first time Rolex has pushed the envelope with color on the Daytona.
Oh, that's a good point.
If you think back to the 1990s and 2000s, you could find almost the entire spectrum of the rainbow, and even those full rainbow gemset designs on the chronograph. It's got a richer history of vibrant color than maybe some people remember.
That historical context is really illuminating, actually.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if Rolex is sort of circling back, maybe returning to those bolder looks because the demand is genuinely there now.
Well, the source we looked at suggests exactly that. Rolex is going bolder, more colorful, less conservative because the market wants it.
Right. And thankfully, for those who prefer the classics, the traditional options are still there too.
Oh, absolutely. They haven't abandoned those, which is good.
So let's zoom in on the heart of this Alcaraz, the dial itself.
Yeah.
What makes it unique? You said lacquered base.
Yeah, it's a lacquered base. So that means it's got this flat, almost enamel-like surface. It's glossy, but not overtly shiny like some finishes.
Okay, so a solid uniform color. Not like the shimmer you get from a sunray brushed dial, like on the Platinum one or the John Mayer.
Exactly, it's different. And the design also uses these contrasting black counters, which cleverly match the black ceramic bezel.
Ah, okay, so that creates a kind of duality.
It does. On one hand, you get more contrast, more distinct visual elements, but surprisingly, it actually helps to soften the intensity of that really vibrant turquoise.
Interesting. Soften it.
Yeah, and when you combine that with the updated applied markers on this new Daytona generation, the gold elements on the dial actually end up looking a bit more discreet than they used to.
And this brings us to a really crucial point, I think. The difference between seeing things online versus in real life.
Definitely.
Those press images, often 3D renders, they tend to pump up the colors, right?
Yep.
And they just can't capture how a watch interacts with light.
You've hit the nail on the head there. A watch, it lives in an environment. The dial is always seen through sapphire crystal. And even with anti-reflective coating, it naturally softens colors a bit.
Right.
Plus, while the case is yellow gold, there are actually quite a few black components. You've got the bezel.
And it's on the black Oysterflex bracelet, too.
Exactly. So all those black elements together, they really balance it out. The gold ends up being far less dominant than it looks in photos.
Okay, that makes sense. So beyond that very striking dial, the rest of the watch has all the updates from the 2023 Daytonas.
Yep, all the key upgrades are there. It's impressive how Rolex keeps the dimensions so wearable. Still, 40mm diameter, that really slim 11.9mm thickness for an automatic chrono, which is quite rare.
Yeah, that is thin.
And 47.5mm lug-to-lug. The Cerachrome bezel, the ceramic one, now has that elegant 18K gold edge framing it.
Nice touch.
And as you'd expect from Rolex, the fit, the finish, it's absolutely superb. And comfort is excellent, mainly thanks to that bracelet.
Ah, the Oyster Flex. It's such a clever piece of kit, isn't it?
It really is.
With those flexible metal blades inside the elastomer.
Yeah.
And the little fins underneath that help it sit well.
Yeah, they really hug the wrist. And they do a great job offsetting some of the weight from the 18K gold case.
Makes it very wearable. One detail that remains, though, the screwed pushers for the chronograph.
Ah, yes. Iconic, definitely. But maybe not the most practical for quick timing on the fly.
Fair point. Okay, now let's talk about what's ticking inside. The engine, caliber 4131.
Right. This is the latest evolution of Rolex's automatic chronograph movement. Really top-tier stuff. It uses a column wheel and a vertical clutch that gives you that smooth pusher feel and chrono hand start.
Smooth operation, yeah.
And it features the patented Chronergy escapement, highly efficient geometry there, plus the blue parachrome hairspring, which is very resistant to shocks and magnetism.
Robust.
It also has a newly designed rotor on an upgraded ball bearing and just a single barrel, but it stores a hefty 72-hour power reserve.
3 days, nice.
And the accuracy is, well, it's Rolex, superlative chronometer certified, both COSC and Rolex's own tougher tests. So guaranteed 9 to 2 plus 2 seconds per day.
Which is pretty incredible. And aesthetically, any changes to the movement finish?
Yeah, it benefits from a more refined decoration now. They call it Rolex Côte de Genève. Looks nicer than the previous caliber.
It didn't.
But hidden, yes, behind a solid gold case back. Our source definitely highlighted a common wish.
Let us see it.
Exactly. Bring back the sapphire display case back that they use on the Le Mans and the Platinum Daytonas. Put it on more models.
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've dissected the watch. Now let's circle back to the core journey here. The expert's personal reevaluation of this very watch. Because there was a significant, almost dramatic shift in opinion, right? After actually seeing the Rolex Daytona Alcaraz Turquoise Lacquer dial 126518LN in the metal.
It was quite something, yeah. Almost a confession, really. And one that initially came with a bit of, well, guilt was the word used.
Guilt?
Yeah, to admit I somehow like it, and feeling a bit alone on the team with that newfound appreciation. It was unexpected.
Huh. So what changed? Why the turnaround?
It sounds like it was just a genuine liking for the watch's sheer audacity, its unexpected style.
The boldness won them over in person.
Seems so. It got characterized as maybe a potential guilty pleasure watch.
Okay, I can see that. Something you don't wear every day.
Exactly. But one that definitely brings a smile when you do put it on.
Right. And despite this newfound appreciation, the expert's overall preference still leans classic.
Yeah, the update was clear. A classic steel model with a white dial. Still the #1 choice. Fair enough.
Can't argue with that.
But this turquoise edition, it absolutely moved up the ranks, became potentially a solid third choice, maybe after a blue dial white gold version.
Wow, that's quite a leap from unpublishable words.
It really is. And just briefly, touching on the market reality, we're talking EUR 37,400 retail.
Steep.
Very. The hype is still absolutely real. Price is high and availability is, well, the source said, tangential to zero.
So hard to get, basically.
Extremely. It's definitely not a watch for every taste, that much is clear, but its journey, how perception changed, that's truly fascinating.
And that brings us towards the end of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We've really journeyed from an initial, quite strong negative reaction, all the way to a nuanced appreciation. Simply by experiencing something directly, not just through a screen.
It really highlights something important, doesn't it? How often our perceptions, especially of things that are highly visual or maybe unique, can be shaped, maybe even distorted by digital images or just our own preconceived notions.
Yeah.
And stepping back, looking at the bigger picture, this whole story kind of raises an important question for you, the listener.
How many guilty pleasures or unexpected appreciations might you discover if you push past your initial reactions? Or maybe prejudgments about things? Whether it's a design like this watch, or an idea, or even a piece of art. What else might change your mind if you truly saw it in the metal beyond the screen? Something to think about.